Okay, I think we're live now. Can people hear me? I see Tug in the chat and Critical's in the chat. Give me one wee second and yeah, I've got it. Can you see it now, Messenger?
Yes.
There you go. So, thank you all for showing up. I'm sure everybody knows Messenger Reveals or has at least heard of the man. So, if you want to just do a wee quick wee sort of round of who you are, man, and why you're on the internet, why you're here on YouTube.
Sure. My name is John. I run two YouTube channels now. One is the Messenger Reveals, where I discuss my unique views on theology, God, and Jesus. And on my other channel, it's called Unplugged from Worldly Thinking. I do self-help stuff there, give people some insight to my views on psychology and clinical counseling, ways to become better versions of yourself. And because I've been out on atheist and agnostic communities for probably the last, I don't know, 9 months to a year, people try to bleed over between religion and psychology, and they're just not related, and at least from the things that I share with people. So I separated them in that way. I think it'd be easier for people to really see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, because
But why did I get on? Why did I get on the internet? To help people. I mean, what a great platform to meet hundreds, if not thousands, of people and share a unique perspective that's going to make their lives better if they're not closed-minded and they're willing to be curious.
well, that's exactly it, man. I try my best to help people and do what I can, and that's if you can't go forward and help people, you're not really worth anything, are you? I people that put people down, I don't get that.
Well, I mean, there's holding people accountable, and you can certainly call people out for even if they're intending to do things, challenge them on their intentions, challenge them on the message that they're trying to provide, and certainly feel free to defend yourself when people are straw manning or being disingenuous or flat out just trying to lie. You should stand up for yourself. You shouldn't just be a punching bag for those people. And generally when people attack my ideas, I don't have a problem with that. When people attack my character or my nature of things that aren't true and then they lie, I'm pretty harsh with them.
Yeah, as you may have seen or you may not have seen, man, and anyone that knows me will tell you that I'm as blunt as anything. Lucy in the chat, thanks all for turning up. Thanks Lucy and Tog and Doorknob and all, but Lucy always says that I'm aggressive. Anytime I come onto a panel or anything like that, I'm always aggressive. I'm Irish aggressive, But
it's in my blood.
It's in my blood, yeah. I'm blunt and I'll just say it the way I see it. And if you have a problem with that, that's your problem. That's not mine. I try not to surround myself with negativity. I try to help people as best I can. If you don't want it, you can go fuck yourself. Best friend, worst enemy. That's sort of my mindset. Like,
No, and generally being blunt and direct is best. Being passive aggressive or being disingenuous, trying to act like you're kind to somebody and then really talk behind their back. I mean, I think it's a bunch of garbage, and I think it definitely shows the nature of people's character and their heart. So those are the people who I'm usually not very pleasant with. And then they think, oh, it's because I attacked his ideas. And I'm like, no, I don't have any problem with you challenging or attacking my ideas if indeed they're my ideas and not your version of my ideas.
yeah, that's the whole thing. You have to grant the other person something. If you're going to continue sort of a conversation and you come across to me and say X, fine, that's what you believe. I accept that you believe that. And then now let's talk about that. Rather than
Right.
flat out telling you you're wrong.
Like if I tell you that I don't believe my God's omniscient, and then you just keep trying to paint it into a corner of clearly my quote God is omniscient, then how are we even having a rational conversation?
Well,
Because all you want to do is get to the point of me acknowledging something I don't hold to be true, so that you can refute that thing that I don't hold to be true either. That makes no sense. So that's what I mean by people being disingenuous or trying to run a script or trying to be right, rather than really trying to be understanding. Like if you don't try to understand another person's point of view, and if they are wrong, you have zero ability to help them possibly see why they might be wrong.
No, I totally get that, man. Yeah, being disingenuous, misrepresentation, it sometimes can happen because people don't understand you, but you're very controversial, and as you talk about your God isn't omniscient, can you do a wee bit of, you are a Christian, yes?
I don't.
Or are you a
I don't
heretic?
I would definitely, in the Christian circles, be considered heretical in terms of my theological beliefs in God and Jesus. I don't like the Christian moniker. Like, even if you look in the book of Acts, it says they were first called Christians in Antioch. And it wasn't a term of endearment. It was more of a jeering. It was kind of like using a racial slur towards
Yeah.
somebody of another ethnicity. Like, hey, there goes those Christians again. Basically, they're calling them followers of the Anointed One, is what Christian meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were making fun of these people who followed a crucified Savior. And then, Peter, in his book that he wrote, or his letter that he wrote, he said, even if I'm persecuted as a Christian, I'll still rejoice. So he wasn't even, acknowledging it's like, even if you guys beat me up and call me a Christian, I'm fine with it. But that's not really how I refer to myself. I just, look at myself as a believer and a theist.
Yeah, well, my mother would refer to herself as a spiritual Christian. As I've said before, she, God's everywhere. Why do you need to go to church? It's that sort of mentality. She is more scriptural, more dogmatic, as in she is a Christian, would identify that she loves Jesus and all that there sort of stuff. But you yourself, man, I've heard, and as I say, I'm blunt. Aliens. Is there an alien in your God? Is it something similar to Richard's? Is it that has been thrown out there that I've heard?
No, the first time that I mentioned that on the internet was over on Progressive Liberals channel. And what I was referring to was, back in 2005, I had a vision that gave me insight and reasoning to knowledge that I didn't previously have. And I said, if people want to sit there, like I say that it came from God. That's just how I identify it. I believe it came through a creator, through something supernatural, certainly something that doesn't exist on this planet. Because, even in the last 14 and a half years of my research in psychology and clinical counseling, there's been nothing that mirrors it whatsoever. So where did this imparted knowledge and understanding come from? And I'm like, if you want to call it an alien, I could say I can't disagree with that, but I still don't believe it's that. And I believe my God has, physical matter. I believe if we're created in his image and likeness physically, then he must look something similar to us. And so other people will say, well, you're talking about aliens. And I'm like, if you want to call it that, fine. That's not the way I see it.
Well, technically, anything that doesn't come from this planet is an alien. So even the Christian God could be fought for and argued that he was an alien. But
so then all God or gods are considered alien, then, correct?
Yeah, you could argue that. This is the point I'm making.
Like if you look at old languages and old texts, the word angel and alien are interchangeable in those old languages. So it's not surprising for people to make that conclusion or say that it is, but I don't look at them as, the little gray people running around with the big eyes and, all the stuff you see in sci-fi. So when people, want to attribute it to, oh, it's just, genetic aliens or genetic engineers or ancient astronaut aliens like you see on the History Channel, it's like, no, I don't think of what I was imparted having anything to do with those things.
Yeah, so it would be more of a physical God than it would be what they would refer to as like a supernatural God. When they say the Christian God, as I say, you could fight for it being an alien, but they don't think alien, they think supernatural deity. You would think more physical, out and about on a planet looking at us and doesn't have...
I don't know, because I haven't been presented with that evidence. So I could only speculate with the best of them of what it might be. I don't know. But when it talks about us being created in his image and likeness, let us create mankind in our image and likeness, let them rule over the earth and have dominion over it. So that has a strong, it makes sense, and it's very plausible based on who we are as human beings, how we think and learn, how we develop ourselves and assimilate information and then formulate new ideas and new conclusions based on the experiences and information that we have, that it's more plausible that we've come from a creator than we evolved genetically over millions of years from primates.
Sorry, I missed that because I coughed. Did you say it's more likely that we were genetically modified than it is that we came from chimpanzees? Not that we came from chimpanzees, but that we evolved here on this planet and are a cousin.
Yeah, like I don't think that there's any relational evolution from, let's say, Homo erectus or Neanderthal man or Cro-Magnon man. If those things, those
things are cousins.
Beings, I believe they were created no different than we were.
Well, all them things are cousins. We didn't evolve from them. They're all cousins. We have a common descent. We didn't evolve technically, specifically from them. We can't say that we directly came from this, that, and the other. We can say that they are all coming from a common ancestor, and that we were all cousins in some respect, but we can't say definitively that we evolved straight from them, you know.
I mean, it's all a mystery and it's all speculation. No matter who says they know what, they're still guessing. They're
Of
still
course we're
coming
guessing.
up with
That
it,
that is the point of science though, is to work on the people that came before us. We can't know everything. We just know what came before us and then add to it.
and that's fair. And the other thing comes, what does the understanding of this do for you in your life? Like the things that you hold to be true, how are they meaningful to you, and how do they help your daily life? For your destiny that you're living here on Earth. How is that manifesting itself within you?
Well, how does science and the progress in the scientific fields make, help my life? Is that what you're asking?
Sure. or
Well,
or anybody. I mean, I think it's a question everybody should ask is,
well, if it
these things that I hold to be true, no matter what beliefs they are, what value are they providing within your framework and context as a human being?
well, I'm talking about the science and stuff, and relative to that, if it wasn't for all the breakthroughs that we had and working on what we came from before, I wouldn't have this channel. We wouldn't be conversing. We wouldn't have this opportunity to spread our thing. As you know, that's that's true.
Sure. I mean, I believe everything's inevitable. I mean, us being here today was always going to happen.
But without saying God of the gap sort of thing, just because we don't know doesn't mean X. It just means we haven't got there yet. Now, don't get me wrong, man. You've seen some of my videos. I'm all up for a wee bit of madness every now and again, but that's my personal experience, and I wouldn't expect certain stories to convince other people. They've kept me on the fence from going agnostic and staying agnostic. These things have kept me there on the fence, but these are
Hmm.
personal experiences that I've had, and I wouldn't expect anyone to believe them, you know?
Well, I mean, we all believe things according to the information that we have and the experiences that we've beholden, along with our genetic makeup and how we process that information,
I think
biologically and physiologically. So
Jay
it
Pasick,
makes
I think,
sense.
says it very well. Jay Pasick says we don't choose our beliefs, we are convinced of them. And convincing of them takes all of that into consideration. I think it's a nice wee phrase.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Again, I think it applies as well. Nobody chooses. You can't just change, what you believe in. You have to be convinced of it. And it's your personal experience, and as you say, where you came from, how you were brought up, and things like that that make you interpret your personal experience the way you did.
Sure, I agree 100% that belief is not a choice. It's an inevitability from that belief. You have beliefs and you make choices. You have all these internal things going on that determine how you act, behave, choose, and decide everything. We just don't always understand all the determinants. The more and better you understand your inner determinants, the better you can, I say, partner with your destiny to create those changes within yourself so you have the outcomes that you desire in the future.
Yes, I agree with you in that. I also think that we have went tangent after tangent, and I don't even know where we originally started. I'm trying to keep myself in
We
line
start
here.
it's still coming around to our core beliefs, and people trying to understand. You said, do you hold to aliens imparted information to you?
Yeah, well,
And it was like my understanding of human behavior is what was imparted. My comprehensive understanding of human behavior with no background in psychology and counseling, that was, I say, given to me back in 2005. I didn't have before 2005 on that day. And I made a joke one time saying, unless somehow I just have the brilliance of it, like an Einstein, and I conceived all these things based on limited information and experiences that I didn't truly understand myself, and came to some formulated conclusion that mirrored a lot of psychologists without even understanding who they were or ever studying their things.
now your background in
Sure thing.
psychology was after or before this?
It was after. It was
After.
after the
It was after
Yeah.
this.
So yeah, you go from November of 2005 when that event happened, and then I started my bachelor's in psychology, and that, I think it was September, August of 2006. Finished it in 2009. Then I did a master's in education, and then after that, I started my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and I did that program. So, all the studies were to better understand what was given to me, to be able to articulate it better. Because I always called it like the one truth philosophy, like, everything that happens is always going to be, that people are always doing the best they can in any given moment. The things we've done in the past could not have been any different than they were. That was the basic tenets of that philosophy.
No, yeah.
And I could only explain it philosophically, and I didn't have very good words and ways of articulating it until after I did those degree programs and listened to how the psychologists or the neurologists explained their theories. And then it allowed me to take a very philosophical model and turn it into a theoretical model.
Right. Well, on that topic and all your background and stuff, another random question from the crowd I got before this. It has been claimed that you have said you can cure post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that claim true? Have you said that or texted that?
There have been people who I've worked with both professionally and personally that on a clinical level, yeah, they were cured of their PTSD after 12 sessions. So, which means they had no more symptomology of it. They didn't have any more triggers of it. And they were completely free from what was binding them on the inside. Their way of cognitively processing horrific things that had happened to them in the past were gone. They no longer had those triggers and traumas and,
No, I can get where you're coming from. I can understand where you're coming from. I just wanted to
So as far as when the way that it all got brought up on the internet, people were just really talking about how debilitating PTSD, and I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way, people. There's answers for the things that you don't understand about yourself. And then, of course, everybody wants some magic 12-step program, and it's not that way. And it's unique and different for every single person. You take 100 people with PTSD, and their symptomology is all very different. You can't say, all right, everybody, here's step 1, you 100 people. Here's step 2. And when you do these 12 steps, you'll be free and cured. No, there's no magic shot. There's no magic pill. But it's a shift in cognitive, experiential, and emotional framework for how you understand yourself and how you understand others. Changes your expectations. Changes the way that you view traumatic and negative events, changes the way that you see somebody who's been an assailant from your past.
I can agree with about 99.9% of that, man. I've said before that if you can control your mind controls your body. And if you can control your mind, you're capable of anything. If you can control, not do a Vulcan and control your emotions, but as you say, if you make the choice, if someone annoys you, and then it doesn't annoy you anymore. It's hard to explain because I've been through something very similar myself. As I explained to you in the wee 5 minutes we had before it. Yeah, I can agree with some things in the way that you would approach certain things. And I would have that same sort of mindset on certain things that... Yeah, it's hard to explain unless you've been through it. And from your end, I can understand the trouble in trying to convey your words and convey your meaning without someone actually experiencing it.
Right. And even if you watched me walk through things with like somebody online that volunteered to go through that process and everybody could witness it, it wouldn't be relevant for everybody with PTSD who was watching it.
Now, question from the audience, just while we're on this topic and don't go off a wee bit. John, you don't mind me calling you John. You can call me Math. Everybody mostly knows my name anyway. It's fucking Robbie, but just for not saying it on YouTube, call me Math. But question from Tony. In the 12 people that were doing the post-traumatic stress thing that you supposedly it supposedly seems derogatory. I don't mean it to be like that. The 12 people who have been cured, was there any test done? Was there an MRI done? Was there anything like that done to confirm these? Have you done any follow-ups with these people?
Well, I mean, when it comes down to when I did clinical therapy, you don't do when counseling is terminated, you don't do follow-ups. There's no contact between you and your clients. That's just not how it works. So when you're getting ready to terminate counseling, or the client's getting to a point where they're like, all right, I'm ready to terminate counseling, there's a process that goes into it. Counseling has a beginning and an end. It shouldn't be an ongoing forever type of relationship. That's
I don't mean no. I don't mean like an ongoing relationship. But would you have like a yearly check-in? If something went wrong and the doctor's over here, if we had something that went on over and doctor's over here. I was 14 years in a relationship with a girl who was agoraphobic and had bipolar, and even when her appointments ended, they still did 1 year and 6. It was every 6 months checkup. Then there was a year checkup, and then it gradually got slower after it was fixed or cured, which it fucking wasn't. But there was a start, there was a middle, and there was an end. But there was a follow-up period afterwards that eventually weaned off. just to
Yeah,
make sure that everything was still okay and there was no relapses or anything like that. You wouldn't just rely on the man saying to you as he walked out the door, thanks very much, you've cured everything, and you never find out about it again. That's
we never use those terms either. We didn't say, "Oh, you're cured now."
yes, but you know what I mean. I'm not trying to be here. We don't be.
No, sure.
Yeah, it's philosophy 101 here, and we're not going to fight over definitions. This is the whole point, is to get to know each other. So I'll explain it. I hope you get where I'm coming from, and then
I do.
Yeah.
But there was no follow-ups here in clinical practice. There's that protocol that you're describing of doing 6 and 12-month follow-ups, like a doctor would do with a client who just had surgery. That's not how counseling works.
Well, here it's the NHS. So the NHS.
When you're talking about when you're talking about 12 sessions, you're talking anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks, depending on if they're coming weekly or they're coming every other week.
And it's for an hour.
So it depends on the time. It depends on the duration. I had clients certainly that were in therapy for longer than 12 weeks. And I had clients that were in therapy and only needed 4, 5, 6 sessions for whatever it is that they were coping with.
So rather than use the word cured, we'll use the word comfortable, and they would get to a point where they're comfortable, and then there would be no follow-up. You just take their word for it, and that's it. They could relapse. Anything could happen. But that's just the way it is in America. You're in America, yes.
I don't believe so. I believe that when people truly become healthy in the framework for the things that I share and teach, there's no relapse. When you're healthy, you have a healthy framework for processing anything. The world looks very different when you look at it through my eyes. And when I teach people to do those same things, when they have a different perspective for how they view themselves, how they view others, what their expectations are for themselves and others, that they don't personalize negative opinions and judgments of other imperfect people. When they learn not to do those things, they don't seek out validation and affirmation for the well-being. They develop things that are true self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. They've learned to heal from the traumatic and negative experiences. They've understood how to manage their emotions in a healthy way rather than repressing them and doing other ways that people cope with their emotions with, substance abuse, drinking, escaping, and other things.
Yeah.
When they learn to truly have a healthy cognitive framework of themselves and others, they're healed not only from the stuff that's happened, but anything that's going to come. They become resilient. They become healthy.
That's
truly.
No, that's a very big statement to make, man. I would go so far as saying I have explained to people that are going through certain things, if they approach things like if I approached it and they've learned to deal with it better, taking on the sort of perspective. And that's what a friend does, gives advice and goes, look, if it was me, I would be coming at it from this point and back and forth and stuff. And as I say, I agree with you in certain things that you say about your mindset and training your mind and your cognitive thoughts to think differently and getting a better result that way. And I've tried to impart that on other people, but I would never go so far to say that that is a guaranteed cure for everybody, because as you said, everybody is different.
Well, and that's why I always say helping people become the best version of themselves. They're not becoming myself. They're not becoming you. They're not becoming whoever it is that they value or idolize or put on to a pedestal of as somebody who they consider healthy or in a state of well-being. People learn to become the experts for their lives because they understand how and why they do what they do, rather than all the ways the world has told them is true, which aren't. When we have negative behavioral consequences and negative choice consequences and negative emotional consequences for how we interact with other human beings, that's an indication that there's still something to learn. There's still something to grow inside in terms of shifting your perspective, shifting the way that you view and judge things. And until people learn how to do that different than what they've done before, they keep having the same consequence.
Now, I don't mean to come across as rude, man, and as I've said to you before we did this, I've done very little research in yourself. I've seen you back and forth and in some of the chats and things like that. I would respect you for what you've done and said and stuff, but I've done basically no real research. I'm just hearing it from your mouth, the horse's mouth, as we go here. But
sure.
Not to be again rude, I'm hearing coping.
Not at all.
I'm hearing coping mechanisms, and as Be Mindful pointed out in the chat, he went to counselling for his post-traumatic and told the counsellor exactly what they wanted to hear and just quit going. He wasn't cured. He just didn't want to go anymore.
Sure. And
so that's why
that's a very unfortunate situation.
This is why I'm bringing up with the follow-ups. These people.
Sure. Let me give an explanation on that type of treatment, just psychology in general, statistics. When you're talking about people who decide to go to counseling, whether they're forced to or whether they're doing it voluntarily or they're being persuaded by a family member or spouse to go do it, The mode for counseling sessions is 1, which means the most frequent sessions that any human being will go to in their lifetime, that when they choose to go, is 1 session. And then the average or the mean is 3 sessions. So most people quit counseling on average after 3 sessions. And the mode is 1. People go to 1 and they're done.
Yeah.
And when we did studies on it, or we had discussions on it, we formulated a number of different reasons.
Right. Well, can I
want
just
to be there.
Okay, right.
So,
well,
so,
there's lots of
so what
reasons.
you've
Let me
shared-
just
what you've shared
interrupt.
with me is-
Let me just
what
interrupt and
you've
say
shared-
this, right? Okay, you've got the mode, you've got the mean, you've got 1, you've got 3, and most people do that. I'm a person who actually has post-traumatic stress disorder, say for talk's sake, and I go to and I actually want help. I want to be cured. I want to be able to deal with life, and maybe possibly medication, because post-traumatic stress disorder does have a medical side as well, and maybe that is the route to go. But I go to the counsellor and I do my 3 sessions, I do my 5 sessions. I've went outside the medium because I actually have it and I do want to be able to cope. But then I still leave, because after 10 sessions you ain't helped me, you ain't done nothing. You've given me coping mechanisms. I've went home and I've tried them, and my brain chemistry still says no.
Sure. Yeah, that would be a very horrible and frustrating situation for somebody that, had hope for counseling or therapy and it doesn't work, which really, supports why the mean is 3 and the mode is 1. My point is like when somebody said, people told their counselors what they wanted to hear. If you're a good therapist, you've conveyed to your client that you don't want to hear anything that is untrue. So if a client feels like they have to tell their therapist something positive, I think the therapist is doing a very poor job to begin with. And that would be my assessment of the therapist. Like if your client's telling you what they want to hear, there's a problem in the nature of that professional relationship.
Well, therapy's more than saying what you want to hear. It's not, learning all the ink blot tests off by heart and things like that. But you will, as anybody with any sort of relationship builds, you'll get to know what the person's expecting and where they're coming from. And
like when in your first session, there's when the counselors given talk about informed consent, they're supposed to give the client a framework for what counseling is, what they can expense, the limits of confidentiality, when there's a duty to report. I mean, all those things are talked about. Counseling has a beginning and has an end. Counseling is for you, not the therapist. The sessions are for the client. If the client's not getting something out of it, and I told my clients this every
just to ask, session, right? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've meaning to ask this 2 or 3 times. You said clients, and I know that you've been to school and all that. Are you registered and declared and legally, with no loopholes or anything that we could go and check, you're a registered therapist?
I am not a licensed therapist. I worked under licensure for the 1.5 years that I practiced.
So you don't practice anymore, you just do the YouTube thing?
The only thing that I'm not working with people as far as like as a therapist or as a counselor. If people want insight and helping me give them insight into becoming a better version of themselves and helping themselves be the expert, when you provide psychoeducation to somebody, it's not therapy. Okay, when you do therapy with somebody, you're doing an assessment, which means you have a long assessment that you provide, including a MSE, which is a mental status exam. You provide a diagnosis, and then you write a service or treatment plan for said diagnosis that's supported by your assessment and clinical formulation. So the nature of when you're a therapist is very different than your nature of talking with somebody one-on-one as a peer.
Right. Well,
does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. So, yeah. But what I'm still asking, just back to the start, man. You're not a licensed therapist, okay? I understand that you feel that you have something to help with people, but why do you do it on YouTube now and not? How many people did you have as clients? You had 12 cured. So I want to just clarify as well.
I never said I had 12 cleared.
No, that's what I want. This is what I want to clarify, right? I mean, no disrespect to anyone who has it when I say cured or anything like that, but there was 12 people that you helped. Yes?
I never said 12. I never used the number 12. The only thing is I said it's not a 12 step.
Sorry. Well, how many people did you help? Out of the group that you had, did you have like 100% success rate, 50% success rate? Did you have 100 people in and you helped 2? I'm trying to figure out why you're doing it on YouTube now if you're so confident in it.
I'm not doing that on YouTube. I'm having conversations with people, meeting people and having dialogue with them.
Do you not have a channel totally dedicated to a secular part of this?
That one just started recently, which was the Unplugged from Worldly Thinking, where I'm giving foundational teachings on helping people become better versions of themselves.
Ah,
Absolutely.
yes.
So as far as doing stuff in that platform or that narrative, if I worked as a local clinical therapist, you'd have the ability to work with anywhere from probably 30 to 50 clients at a time at most. So, given that most people would probably need anywhere from 3 to 6 months of treatment, and on most cases and situations, you're not seeing that many people per year
You're
as
not.
far as your outreach towards people, as far as having access to these things.
Yeah, but you're. Again, I don't mean to be blunt, but it's a fucking YouTube channel, man. That's, I know you're trying to do your best and do all the rest of it, but a YouTube channel where you watch videos is what's known as YouTube University, and it helps and it's great and it's wonderful. And some channels out there are fantastic, and there's people like Digital Hammurabi that's putting forth actual, scholarship trying to help people out there and all. But if
Sure.
you're so confident in your ideas, I've heard the statement that you've said you're a prophet and you have the ways and means forward and you know how to fix things, and if
Well,
this,
now you're jumping off the psychology thing and
no,
jumping
no,
back into
I don't mean.
theology.
I don't know, man. This is what I'm saying. I'm going in
Sure.
blind. I'm going in blind. So correct me if that's that's a totally different thing. We'll leave that and move on. But what I'm trying to say is, if you've had a success rate, and why not do that face to face? Obviously, face to face people, if you would definitely help them more so face to face than you would just having a YouTube channel. I know you say if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can. But a lot of people ain't going to reach out to a stranger on the internet and tell them, open their soul to them, so to speak.
I think you'd be surprised. I mean, as far as like the number of people over the last year and a half that I've been on YouTube who have emailed me and have had private either Discord or Zoom conversations, both from Christian and atheist and agnostic communities. So, my message certainly isn't for everybody. People have the right to be skeptical and, have those viewpoints and not even desire to listen to anything I have to say. They have every right to that. And if they prefer to go to a clinical counselor or therapist for the things they're dealing with, by all means do that. But my question to people, or my challenge to people, is if what you're doing isn't working, you need to seek out something different. So if you're going to a therapist and you're not getting what you need in the first probably 3 to 6 sessions, then you should ask for a referral. Here in the United States, we're required to give 3 referrals upon a client termination of therapy. That's a requirement. So if you're not getting...
That's a requirement for a licensed therapist, yes?
Or anybody who's working under licensure. So it goes both ways. When you have the credentials, which means you have your master's degree in a clinical practice, you have to do 2 to 3 years underneath supervision before you can get fully licensed.
So I don't understand, because I don't work in this field. When you say working under license means legal, and that's what you're not, but you're under licensure, or what was that you said?
When you work under licensure, the way that it works is you have the credentials, which means you've finished a clinical program. You've passed the tests that you need to do. And when you first get out in the field, you have to work underneath a licensed professional counselor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist for 2 to 3 years. You have to do 3,200 hours of direct and indirect counseling in that 2 to 3 year period. And then after that, you can apply for your own full license and then work independently rather than under licensure.
Okay, now I'm just going to ask this because, again, man, it's not my field and I don't know. You've heard of Shannon Q, yes?
Yes.
And you know the whole thing where she's doing against the Christian loophole people? You're not doing that. You are doing the right way so far.
Yes,
No.
because what she's talking about is people who are in the Christian counseling. They don't have to have any credentials to call themselves a marriage counselor.
Yeah,
Or
they work
Christian
in that
counselor.
field, and I've watched
So-
that video
so-
of her. But
so-
what
so-
I'm asking
so-
is, were you in that stage, man? So you're still working under someone's license, or you've done that and just waiting to go?
I'm not doing any counseling anymore.
So you did do. That's what I'm saying. So you
When I worked under licensure, that was all legal.
and you don't. So now, when you give advice to people, it's only for YouTube, and you don't have interactions with people face to
I have
face.
interactions with people face to face, but I'm not doing clinical therapy.
Yeah.
I'm not providing an assessment, a diagnosis, or a treatment plan. And if somebody is dealing with something serious, especially something that may require psychotropic medications, I'm the first one going, you really need to get in and work with a professional. Either work with your family doctor, a psychiatrist, or a nurse practitioner in conjunction with clinical counselor to be able to get treatment for X.
No.
Because obviously I have the insight to diagnose somebody, to be able to look at somebody and say, yeah, you're meeting the features or the criteria of said diagnosis, but I'm not going through and formulating a clinical thing and going through an entire MSE and assessment with that person.
Yes.
I'm just going, hey buddy, or hey girl, you probably need something more than what we're talking about.
Yeah, and sort of not a metaphor, or is it an analogy? I'm a mechanic, but I don't have any paperwork. I'm self-taught mechanic. I've worked in garages, underbodies, worked my ass off all my life, 20 years in the fucking business. But
Sure.
if I'm in a garage in our place at work that doesn't have a mechanic with the paperwork, I'm not insured to work on the fucking cars because there's no fully trained with paperwork mechanic there. Now I could go and get the paperwork, but my reason being for not going and getting the paperwork is I work 48 hours a week, and the only time I get off I spend with my family because they live apart from me. So I have very little time, and any time I do have, man, I spend it enjoying myself and reading and things like that, things that bring benefit to my life and that bring enjoyment to my life. But that's my reasoning for not going and getting that piece of paper. What I'm asking you is, if you've done all the underneath the licensed guy, done all that, have all the necessary background, why again aren't you doing what you're doing in real life? It would help more people.
I think you're wrong. I think I could help more people without going through that process.
You think that you're going to help more people just with YouTube videos than you will actually being a licensed therapist?
YouTube videos / working with people personally, absolutely. I believe that through my duration until I leave this planet, yeah, I think that I'll help more people doing what I'm doing now than I ever would as a licensed clinical therapist in a city.
Well, not to be a let's go capitalism, but you're obviously probably not making as much money on YouTube as you would as a clinical therapist.
No, but I make a pretty good living in job working for a mining company. So.
Oh yeah, well, mining and oil rigs and things like that do make enough money to.
I mean, I'm not out in the field as an engineer. I'm a desk jockey, but I'm a project control specialist. So I make a fair wage I make over twice what I ever did as a therapist.
Right. So money's not an object then. I'm reference to the therapy.
Money is not a motivation for helping people.
No. I totally wouldn't. I'm not negating for that, man. I live on the fucking borderline every day of my life and have since I was fucking 18. Everything in my house is second hand. Yellow stickers and Tesco's in the reduced section is my first go-to when I go shopping. Money's a fucking disaster. But no, I just wanted to know why you weren't doing it in real life, because personally I think that we could do more.
And I've answered that question before, and I'll answer it here. Number one, the pay wasn't that great. That was the first thing. Number two, and more importantly, working in that public behavioral health space, those people did not care about helping people. And it was very disheartening to me to a degree to find that truth out after I had finished the program, because I was like, I'll go through this process, I'll get licensed, and then I'm going to go do my own thing.
Right. Well, just interrupt. Just interrupt on that topic, man. You said that you found most people in that field that if you'd have went into licensed therapy don't cure. You also said earlier that if the therapist couldn't read what the person was reading, that's a fall in the therapist. But if that's what you were finding most people like that. So you can understand why most people...
there's a difference between private therapy or counseling, and there's a difference between public, which is given through state insurance. So most of the people who go work under licensure are forced to go into public behavioral health because private insurances generally don't cover under licensure therapy.
Hold on one second. Is there an echo? Did AR, I don't know, on the YouTube channel itself, AR said there's an echo. I don't know if he's...
I don't hear an echo from you, and I don't have your stuff playing on my thing, so I'm not sure where that might be coming from.
Is there an actual echo for the people watching on YouTube? There's No, he's making a joke. I think he's making an echo chamber joke. Okay, right. You freaked me out there, AR. Messenger has echo. Okay, AR's doing as usual. I hate Messenger thing. No offense, I know you have your little thing going on between the two of you that I don't want to get involved in. So moving back to what you were saying, go on ahead.
Sure. So in regard to the people in public behavioral health, to me, the people who are licensed, still working in public behavioral health, are the worst therapists that are available to do therapy to begin with. So the people who are in these positions, these supervisory positions, who are doing things for these families, these children, these adults that are all on state-assisted insurances. So these are our choices when you first get into doing therapy, where you have to work under licensure, is to go work in public behavioral health rather than private pay or insurance pay, like private insurance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just different over here, man. It's all through the NHS. We pay for it,
and then on top of that, I mean, the even best therapists don't even use private insurance. They're cash pay therapists, because obviously their skills warrant that service.
Sorry, I've not been listening the last 20 seconds. Now I'm all panicking about the echo because they said there wasn't, then there was, and I'm going to just have to learn to move on from it. So, yes.
There's no echo.
Well, there wouldn't be for you, but I'm running, as I said, I'm running 2 programs, so there might be a wee bit of echo. I'm going to have to sort that. I do need to learn to get my headphones going, but yes. Now
that helps a little bit for sure.
Well, as it stands with OBS, man, when you plug the headphones in, I get all the audio to my headphones and no audio to the YouTube. So that's just why I do the mic thing. But
so AR is saying this has nothing to do with my beef with Messenger. He really does have an echo. So he's here. So she is hearing an echo from my microphone from what she's saying in your chat.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my TV down because, as I say, I'm not using headphones. So I think they're actually hearing an echo. Yes, I know I need headphones, man, but I need to fucking learn audio banana. What is it, voice meter banana or something? To fucking...
I have no idea. I just pop some earbuds in or some headphones.
It works for StreamYards, man. No bother. You plug your headphones in, but if you're trying... We're talking technical shit. We shouldn't be. Right. I've turned you down to barely audible, so only I can hear you, and I've turned you up on OBS, so it should be no different, and the echo should have gone. Okay, say 1, 2, 3 or some shit.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
And that's the way it's going to fucking stay. She is all medieval.
They said the echo's gone, so whatever you did, you cleared it up.
Yeah, I just turned the TV down, man. That's all it is, because I say I'm not using headphones and the mic's turned away from it. But yeah, okay, we're all good now. I can barely hear you, but I think we're all good.
Back to business.
Yeah, back to the business at hand, man. Yeah, we've sort of like go for it.
Again, just to finish up, public behavioral health. The biggest issue I had for the place that I worked is the most important thing to them was billable hours, which means they had a quota for their therapists, whether they were under licensure or had private license, or professional license, that they had to meet a certain quota of billable client hours per week. That was number one.
Yeah,
Number two thing was making sure that your documentation covered your ass on everything that you did. So that way, if there was any type of court interventions or if there was any type of lawsuits, that everything was I's dotted, T's crossed. Third thing was, if we can help people, then yeah, that's a good thing too. And then they told me, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to help everybody. Like, that was the attitude. And in my mind, I'm like, fuck you. I'm going to help everybody. That was my mindset. I'm here to help everybody that's assigned to work with me, that I've been assigned as a client or a case. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
then
the point I'm trying to make, though, is, man, the point I'm trying to make, right? Just let me say it, right? The point I'm trying to make with the whole YouTube thing is, YouTube has an outreach, as you say, of thousands and millions and all these people, right? But because of that, you're going to get people... The first thing someone does these days if they need help is they Google it, okay?
Sure.
And in the top 3 or top 5, usually, there's a YouTube video for it. So if you tag your stuff right, you can get seen by so many people. Now, that's a good thing, but it can also be throwing a stone out into a sea of 1 million people. You're guaranteed to hit 100,000 people with post-traumatic stress disorder. You're going to hit most of these people. They're going to come to you. But it's a YouTube thing, man. If you were in real life, they were going to have to... I think in real life, you would find more people that you can genuinely help rather than even on YouTube. You can't make a diagnosis on YouTube. I know you're talking to them, but you can't do the tests. You can't send their blood work away. You can't do an MRI. You can't do these things, you know. And I feel without that vindication of the real world, because YouTube's not real. You know, YouTube is where we all come to do our thing, but it's not real. It's just ones and zeros on a fucking screen.
The relationships are still real.
Oh, the relationships are real, yes, but you can't do these tests. Like, as we have discussed, there is physical sides and physical symptoms of these disorders that you're talking about. So if I really wanted to, I could look up all the symptoms and I could come on and I could spend 12 months with you, and if I was smart enough, I could bullshit.
Well, it's not just
you can't send a test away to make sure. Where if you were in the real life and I came to you and I says, look, I think I've got post-traumatic stress disorder from such and such that happened, you can do a test on me and say, right, it looks that way, or your blood sugar.
That's not how it works.
No, but I'm being colloquial and broad brushing it.
Sure.
But yeah, you confirm things in the medical field with medical tests, not conversations.
Well, the thing is I'm not here saying, hey, everybody with PTSD, come check out my channel.
I do say, I'm sorry for us getting stuck on that one thing. I know that you do an awful lot more on your channel. And we've obviously got...
I'm talking about, how do you better communicate with people? What are better choices of words? How do you understand things like truth and what is truth? Talking to people of how do you deal with stress in a healthy way? How do you get rid of and eliminate anger so it's not, consuming your life? When we're talking about things that I do on my YouTube channel, they're very practical and very easy to put into practice. And if you're still having difficulty after watching and listening to what I had to say, sure, I'll have as many one-on-one conversations as you want to have to see what it is that you're not understanding or what it is that's really, impairing, whatever it is that you're dealing with.
I understand that, man, but as a slight to me, and it's been in my life and it's happened, I said to you that I was with that girl for 14 years. She was agoraphobic and bipolar. She was only right for a certain period towards the end of our relationship, because after 14 years they eventually diagnosed her. She went to the doctors, she'd done the therapy, she'd been on all these different medications, and only when they eventually figured out what she actually had and got the proper medication did she start to go on the right track again.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Now, at the very start, even the medical professionals that did do certain medical tests came back with this diagnosis and that diagnosis and the rest of it. But the point I'm trying to make is only when they got the right tablets and the right diagnosis did it eventually get better. So all the conversations in the world, no offense to, you could have the meaning of life, but if they can't figure it out and you can't diagnose them, it doesn't matter. It's do you get what I'm trying to say?
Out of all the things that you can be diagnosed with in the Diagnostic Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, that's the current latest flavor of it. Out of all the things you can be diagnosed with, every single human being that read just through the criteria would be able to go, yep, I'm dealing with that. Yep, I'm dealing with that. Everybody would meet some criteria because of our imperfections as human beings.
Oh, yeah.
But when something becomes clinically diagnosable, which means that it's meeting all the criteria and it's already been checked out by differential diagnosis, which means that it's not better explained by another disorder that's better, and you have to be trained to do that. Sometimes you go through cross-cutting tools, which are surveys that, either done observationally or self-observed within yourself. Once you get down to, having the right diagnosis, the majority of diagnoses in the DSM do not require medication. So you're not needing to sit there and now getting into with psychopharmacology of needing to play guesswork, because it's not just about saying, hey, I have bipolar 1.
Did you say 90% or did I mishear that? Did you say 90% you can just diagnose and don't need medication? Did I mishear that?
I'm saying you would be diagnosed and you need some type of probably group or individual.
You did give a percentage, did you not there? Sorry, the dog was jumping
I'm throwing it out randomly, but I'm saying
it's a very high percentage. When someone says pulling a number out of their ass and they say 90%, they're pretty much saying
here's the
all
ones
of them.
that you... I'll tell you the ones you can't cure or treat without medication. Here's the ones you cannot treat without medication. You cannot treat bipolar 1 disorder without medication. You cannot treat schizophrenia without medication. You cannot treat ADHD without medication. Those three specific ones, you need medication.
That's
There's
okay, but these
there's
people
a
make these tests. They go for these tests and they do the tests to make sure that they find the 1 in 3. They don't just look at it and diagnose and go, "Ah, it's all right. I'm 90% sure." They test everybody. You know, I know
No,
you're
they
saying that
don't,
it's only
because the way that you do clinical formulation isn't based on a test. It's based on an assessment that's objective and subjective.
okay, maybe they may not test everybody, but the ability to go forward and do that to confirm if the actual symptom can be physiologically found is there. What I'm saying is they have that choice. If it can be found and there's a medical test for it, they will be able to find it. All I'm saying is a conversation on the internet is just that.
Oh, I agree that the conversation on the internet is just that. And that's why the things that I share, the things that I'm providing would help anybody, whether they were diagnosable or not diagnosable. If a person had no, diagnosed mental illness, they could go to my channel and benefit from it in their personal and professional lives.
Well, I
So
haven't
it's
checked
not.
it out. I did. A friend of mine last Tuesday after the show texted me and asked who I had on next week, and I sent him your link. And about 3 days later, he'd actually made the effort to watch your videos. Now, he said he only watched about 45 minutes of it. Excuse me. He had a wee quick flick through it on his lunch break. I haven't even watched it, but he said that he could agree with an awful lot that you said. He says this boy
Oh,
isn't
okay.
talking complete bullshit.
Well, I mean, that's my position that I hold. I'm not blowing sunshine up anybody's ass, and I'm certainly not looking to be recognized myself as some freaking hero. I'm just sharing information that was given to me and doing it the best way I know how to articulate it.
That
I'm not trying to stonewall the conversation because I'd like to keep it going in whatever direction you want to take it. But, the stuff that I put out works.
Well,
The
I
stuff
didn't
that I
have to.
share
I didn't have to
works.
let everybody know that. I could not have told that. He's actually not in the community. He's in Thailand. He's teaching English in Thailand. He left this country because he fucking hates the way our government's ran, and it's cheaper to live out there. Although he did get his fucking moped stolen, and when he went back and basically talked to the thief was like, "No, you drove it home. No, the man was that drunk he couldn't fucking walk home." And he went back the next day for his moped and it was stolen. But anyway, I didn't have to mention that this random stranger agrees with you. I'm here to try and make a
I,
platform that everybody can see. And if we're open, man, it's 7 minutes away from an hour. I'm going to open it up to questions for the last wee bit, and then we'll jump off. My dog's going buck mad. He needs to get out. We'll take 15 minutes or so, and then we'll come back for the after party, and I can open a bottle of wine up, and we can have a bit of fun.
that sounds like a good plan.
Right, well, anybody from the crowd? I think Bill did ask one earlier, and I said that I would remember it, and I fucking forgot. So if you can remember, Bill, that would be great. And yeah, any questions from the chat? Also, after party, open up for another 4 people. If anybody wants in, send me a message on Twitter or contact me, or I'll probably post it in the Pigsty general Discord. So if anyone wants it, it'll be there. Yeah, and we'll work back and forth. So, questions from the audience. You've had a whole 90 seconds now. And all I've got is MathPig, socks or pants first.
What is that inside joke?
I have no idea. I think he's looking to get a freak on, but we have a running joke with like Jim Majors, all live streams are pantsless live streams, which would be trousers off for us, but
Sounds like a Dragnet live stream.
Dragnot never puts his top on, but that's just his thing. He can get
Well,
boring sometimes.
you
though,
never
but
see him pan down either.
the whole Steve thing does go on. I do appreciate the question you asked today. I know you got shit for it, but he did go on for a good maybe half hour, 45 minutes with an answer.
Well, the
So,
thing that I don't understand, and just to touch on that for 2 seconds, is, he was earlier in the video. He's making a comment that Steve always needs a protagonist, or he always needs an antagonist to sit there. And I'm like, for somebody who has Jill and Steve, that's his white whales. That's his Moby Dicks. So there's a lot of people out here that are have their nemesis, so to say, or their person that they're always going after. So
Oh yeah, I
that's
can see
seem
that.
kind of hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, I like Dragnot. Dragnot's very intelligent, very smart man, has a lot of good things to say, but the boring part is just it's the same sort of things. As you say, they've got a nemesis, and I'd pop in every now and again, but it's usually just the same sort of thing. And yeah.
No, there's a lot I like about him, but there's just things I don't like about him. I'm sure it's like that for everybody.
That I have to say, whenever I first mentioned, I think it was back in August, it may have been in Skylar's Discord, and we were having, and Dragnot was there, and I was saying about wanting to actually start my own channel and get a wee bit more involved. The first thing Dragnot did was grab me and drag me into another stream and put me on the spot and make me talk. I have to respect him for that. I was like, right, well, if you're going to do it, just do it. Stop talking about it and just do it. And a kick up the arse like that was fantastic. It's just what I needed, and yeah, I've taken a lot from him. His server is very good, and it's something similar to what I want to aim for. Not in the drama section, but in the it's open to everybody section. It's limited. You can't just walk in. You need to get an invite. It's the same on my own. The invites are out there, but it's limited. I don't want every old Tom, Dick, and Harry to come in, because certain people just can't be fucking dealt with. Certain people have no intention. Like, as soon as Jill joined Discord, the very first thing I did was go and copy his ID number and put it into the bots in my Discord with an autoban. I could send Jill a fucking link to my Discord. He could click it all day long. He ain't getting in.
Okay. Well, I mean, he doesn't want to have a dialogue and understand where you're coming from. He just wants a platform to only talk about what he's talking about and ignore everything you have to say. Like, when people ask me questions, I answer the questions. Jill skips over the questions.
Yeah,
He
Jill
talks
doesn't
past.
listen. No, well, I don't like talking about him. That was all I'm going to talk about, and we're going to go back to questions from the chat, because we've got a question from the chat. Thank you, Tartan, for tagging me. You need to tag me when we're chatting. I'll not fucking see it. Question from Jared. Do you think that major depressiveness doesn't require medication?
It doesn't always. So the ones that I listed were absolute 100%. With generalized anxiety, you could treat that with medication.
No, he's asking if you're majorly depressive.
No, there's a diagnosis called major depressive disorder. So there is a disorder called major depressive disorder.
Which you did not list.
It does not always require psychotropic medication. It could be treated with both psychotropic medication and talk therapy or group therapy, but it doesn't mean it's an always, like I listed with those other three.
Yeah, but that just seems like you're sort of creating a wee...
I'm not creating anything. This is stuff that we studied.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you said there's three that can't, and then you were asked specifically, and then you said, well, it can or it can't. Well, every other thing that wasn't listed in that could or could not been. There's three that you said that definitely must always have medication. Always.
And major depressive disorder does not fall into that always.
And it doesn't fall into the always.
No. Correct.
Okay.
We've treated people. You can go look up case studies where people were treated with major depressive disorder without psychotropic medications. They don't always need an antidepressant.
Okay.
It depends.
No. I don't mean to say okay as in, disrespect for it. And okay as in,
No.
Yes, I'll take your statement. You probably will in the after party if a lot of people jump in. Citations, that happens in the after parties a lot. You'll be asked to back your shit up. There will be a share screen available if you need to do anything like that. So if we've no more questions from the crowd, my dog is literally 4 inches from me and staring at me. So nothing else. We've got Tog. I don't know what he's fucking doing. I don't know what that emoji is. It looks like poop on a cake or something. Poop on a cracker.
He's smoking a cigarette.
Is that what that is? It looks like poop on a cracker.
It's a cigarette with smoke coming up out of it.
I can see it now. Bill's question from earlier. Thank you. When you said back that ancient languages use alien and angel intertwined as in the same word, could you provide a citation for that?
I'm sure I could find one, but I don't have one on hand.
Also, as a side note, do you mean alien as in the modern interpretation of alien? That's a side note. So, I'm going to go let the dog out and we'll have a 15-minute break. I don't know if you want to try or not, but yeah, after party. So, if anyone wants a link, let me know. Angie, we'll be back in about 15 minutes if you want to come back, but we'll see. Send me a message, get in contact with me. And yeah, everybody, thanks for turning up for the get to know Messenger reveals. And let's all see how it goes in the next wee bit. All right. Do you want to do a wee quick shill there, John, again with your channels?
I just want to say that, I think you are a very honest and gracious host. I appreciate you being open and honest in every way that you were. You're a very authentic person, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you letting me speak and share my viewpoint without interruption. That was always appreciated.
I thought I did interrupt.
That being said, again, I already mentioned my channel, so just thanks for having me.
Man, I appreciate the love. Okay, everybody, we'll see you all back in about 10-15 minutes, just enough to let the dog out. Mightn't even be 15 minutes. But yeah, we'll see you all back for the after party. Bye.